Hello and welcome to Green Building Bites presented by Green Building Alliance. I'm Leslie Montgomery with the Green Building Alliance team, and in today's bite, I bring you an interview with Jessica Hickman, who represents the fourth generation of her family's business, Allegheny Mountain Hardwood Flooring. Jessica and I are going to talk about sustainable forest management, certification under the Forest Stewardship Council, and her family's legacy in the woods. Let's meet Jessica now. Hi, Jessica.
Hey, Leslie, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for talking to me today.
For having me.
Your family's company and GBA have been working together for a long time now to provide tours of your manufacturing operation in Emilenton. And today we just kind of get to talk a little bit about your family's history and its legacy and give people a sneak peek of your operation. So the first question I want to ask you is, can you just share a little bit of information about the history of your family's business?
So my great grandfather started Hickman Lumber during the Depression in the 1930s. And so he was a farmer and just started the sawmill. He had a team of horses and they had a traveling mill, him and my great grandmother. So they lived in the woods and just kind of started the whole sawmill thing. And then my grandfather, Pop Larry, he really was the one that grew the sawmill, started buying timber, kind of in the 50s and 60s. He never had really any formal forestry training. He just spends a ton of time in the woods. He's, an avid hunter and trapper and fisherman and all of that. So he's just learned stuff from spending decades and decades in the woods that even today, when we do our annual audits with the FSC, somebody from a forestry school is like, how did you figure this stuff out? They don't teach this in schools. Like, how are you growing so much oak? That was Pop Larry. He's really kind of the brains behind growing the business. Then my dad came in full time in the 1980s. And he's the one that really got the dry kilns up and running with the sawmill. So it kind of grew the sawmill to a next step. And then in the early 2000s, him and my grandpa and my uncle Pat started Allegheny Mountain Hardwood Flooring. So that's when the flooring got into the mix. So we've got Hickman Timber Management that owns property. And we manage a lot of private landowners' property as well. So that's got the FSC certification with that. Hickman Lumber and Allegheny Mountain Hardwood Flooring are the three separate businesses. And then my brother and I are working with them today. So we're fourth generation today.
So what made your family decide to pursue that FSC certification with the Forest Stewardship Council? And what was the process like to become certified?
That all happened in the late 90s, like 1999 is when we became officially certified. And the FSC is a cool program. It's a voluntary program. It's an international, it's a gold standard for green, as most of the people in the Green Building Alliance will know. But, whenever one of our foresters kind of brought it to my dad saying about this new program, it was fairly new then. My dad will tell the story. He goes, the last thing I need is Al Gore telling me how to grow oak trees. He actually kind of started looking at it and was like, well, kind of their guidelines for how to manage timber sustainably is similar or, what we've been doing for decades, right? And it's what my grandfather and great grandfather were doing. I know getting into it, it was very involved. There was a lot of paperwork was the biggest difference. It didn't really change how we were managing the forest, but it was just the documentation and, writing formal management plans for each property. And then each year now we have an annual audit where somebody comes out in the forest, they pick out a handful of random sites that they want to go visit. They talk to other landowners that we're managing for them under these guidelines and how we're cleaning up after we're done and how the loggers, we're working with them and they're following all the environmental and legal, issues as well. It's a good organization overall. Having this FSC certification was just kind of this like third party confidence builder for that homeowner saying like, hey, we're doing this. We're thinking long term. We're thinking about the health and the sustainability of these forests, as well as making products out of it. You can create a healthy forest while having a working forest, right? So they can go hand in hand. And that's kind of what got us into the FSC program, was to get landowners to work with us for managing their timber. Now, what it's grown into then with us doing the flooring, it's been great because we're able to sell all of our flooring as 100% FSC certified. So it's all coming from our property. All the Pennsylvania state forests are all FSC managed as well. So we have a lot of timber to use And so we sell in a ton of museums and lead projects all over the country. So that FSC program's been great.
So one of my favorite things when I do come to the tour that you do every year is I love it when your forest manager takes us into the woods and tells us all about how the forest is managed. So can you tell us what are some of the practices for managing the forest and harvesting the wood that are key in terms of maintaining the health and longevity of the forest?
So our goal with most of the forest is to create an uneven age managed forest, right? You want young trees, you want middle-aged trees, and you want old trees. A lot of Pennsylvania right now is kind of an older growth, right? Pennsylvania was clear cut after the Civil War. So a lot of our forests in Pennsylvania are in that 150-ish age. And so like in general in Pennsylvania, they're actually dying at a faster rate than we're harvesting them, which when a tree dies, that carbon it's sequestered is re-released back in the atmosphere, right? So that's kind of one of the biggest things to forest that we're trying to get as a whole state to utilize more of this wood. So one of the big things with how we manage is we don't want to high grade, right? So that's basically what that means is when we go in to harvest a property, like white oak is really popular now. We're not going to cut down all the white oak trees right now because there's high demand for it. You want to create seed trees. So some of your older, healthy trees that are going to drop their seeds, acorns and nuts for the regeneration. And so it's all natural regeneration. For the most part, we don't replant. When you cut down a tree that's ready, it's going to open up that canopy and allow that sunlight to reach the forest floor. And that's going to allow the seeds to germinate, the young saplings to really take off and grow. The cool thing with that is then those younger trees, as they're starting to grow, they're like little kids, right? They're eating quicker. So they're taking in more carbon at a faster rate. Your old trees are storing a lot of carbon, but they're not taking it in as fast. So having that mix in the forest is good for that carbon balance as well. And then taking that wood product from a mature tree, making into a long-term product that's going to last 100 years in someone's home, that's going to store that carbon as well. So it really is just kind of like using more wood products is kind of like a win-win-win for like the whole carbon storage system.
What do you wish people knew about your industry and the way that your family approaches your business?
My family is not totally unique within the industry. I think we're moving past, especially in the Greenbelt community, thinking like that big bad logger and realizing that like using wood, especially using a wood product compared to a plastic alternative is green and important. And it's important to keep forest as forest by having a demand for wood products. And it also, like I was talking about earlier, how the forests are managed properly. I think people in the industry, we do love our forest. We love being outdoors. So I think that's something that I want to get across. I think people know they love the beauty of wood. That's why a lot of your fake plastic products, they're trying to make it look like wood, right? Because we like how it looks. The other cool thing that I'm learning more about is the biophilic design. So the health benefits of actually having wood in the house. But I think it's such a cool concept and like understanding it was like, oh, no wonder we're all connected to wood, right? Like when we have samples in a trade show and people touch it, oh, is this real wood? Like people touch it, right? We're just drawn to it. And so it's fun to see these scientific studies that are explaining why we're actually drawn to it. Like it's healthy benefits too.
So when you provide a tour of your operation in Emlenton to show people behind the scenes of your business, what types of things do they get to see?
So it's a pretty full day. We go out in the woods with a forester and we'll talk about that regeneration. It's cool. The property that we go to right near the sawmill, and in the last 10 years, it's been harvested. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago that we actually did a harvest on it, right? And so it's cool to show like this is what it looks like. This was cut 3 months ago, and so you can see, and it's kind of fun to be out there now. We kind of do the same little walk and seeing how it's changing. I mean, the sawmill's cool then too. We'll go in and you'll watch you'll see the head saw, the logs coming up and going around the resaw. We do specialize in rift and quarter sawn. So a lot of times we can show, that cutting of how rift and quarter sawn is done, and then we'll take them to the flooring plants. It's a good day.
Well, I always like to ask this question because I know it's clear you were talking about the fact that your family loves the forest. You grew up in the woods, especially with you being fourth generation. And I know you and a lot of your siblings having kids now who might end up being fifth generation in the business. The forest really is part of your family legacy. And it's also always clear to me on the tour of the forest when your forest manager gives us the tour, you can tell that he, just absolutely loves the trees in the forest. So that's always really special to hear about and to think about with your family's legacy. So having grown up in the woods and having, a legacy around the forest, what is your favorite tree?
It's got to be an oak. I don't know if it's a red oak or white oak, but that's the majority of flooring that we make too. So that's what I see a lot. But as the tree goes, like, I think it's so cool how oak trees, like the majority of their young life, they focus on the roots, right? So oak trees are known to be like, they're strong, that's symbolic of that, but they focus on the roots. So you can actually do a controlled burn to help regenerate oak growth, because the oak tree, the roots are so deep and so strong that even after a burn, the small saplings will survive and thrive after that. And then it's just a beautiful tree. Other than that, a magnolia tree is like beautiful, for my yard. But for the forest, I definitely a red or white oak.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me and sharing about your family and your business and all about the manufacturing process.
Yeah, thanks for everything that Green Building Alliance has done for us and partnered with this tour and everything for years. You guys have been a huge help, and keep, spreading the good word, right?
Great. Yeah,
So.
thank you so much, Jessica.